Another year has passed. It's been another awesome year of coasters. And even though I didn't get to ride a ton of new ones, I got to visit a ton of parks. You already saw my coasters that moved up and down my list, and my winners and losers of my new credits. So today, let's put it all together. Out of 563 credits, this is part 1 of my top 100 coasters, numbers 100 to 51. Here's a breakdown of part 1 of my top 100, numbers 100 to 51. First, let's look at manufacturer, and B&M dominates this list. With 17, they have almost double what Intamin has. And for the first time ever, you will see RMC represented in this group. Now by state, and the usual suspects are in a three-way tie at the top. Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Florida all with 7. Virginia and Texas not far behind. Breaking down wood versus steel, you'll see 10 woodies and 40 steel. And finally, we break them down by the year they opened. And no shock, the turn of the century is well represented, with 2000 being on top. When I posted this last year, everyone seemed to want to see how these ranks have changed from year to year, so I'm going to include that on the screen for every coaster. Number 100 is Superman Ride of Steel at Six Flags America. You give Six Flags America an Intamin mega coaster. You gotta mess with it a little so it fits in with the park. It's got a weird layout, it's got annoying bars on the restraints, but it's a speed machine and it's got some good airtime. Still the star of the park until they RMC roar. Number 99 and 98 is Batman Night Flight at Six Flags Worlds of Adventure and Dominator at King's Dominion. I do consider relocated coasters as new credits, so this gets 2 spots. I got to ride this once in 2022 and it was as good as ever. It was Sophie's first Flores coaster and she loved it also. It's just a great long layout that does more than just inversions. It's good even without the 0G roll. That's hard to say for a Flores coaster. Number 97 is Great Bear at Hershey Park. What can I say? I love a weird invert, and this might be the weirdest one B&M ever built. It's not a stat monster, but when I get off, I've always gone back for round 2. Number 96 is Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. Here's one you saw on the coasters that shot down my list. This is around where it was 2 years ago, but after a great ride in 2021, it jumped into my top 70. It was kinda weak for me this year, so I dropped it back down, still hanging on to a top 100 spot just because it offers so many different forces. Number 95 is Texas Stingray at SeaWorld San Antonio. This GCI is making its top 100 debut. It was pretty slow for me when I first rode it in 2020, so it was on the outside looking in. But after a couple awesome rides this year, I saw what the ride could do when it was warmed up, and it's an awesome wooden coaster. Number 94 is Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom. Another coaster making its debut on my list as one of my new credits. I thought this would be a really good coaster, and it was even better than I thought. It offers some thrilling elements and awesome in-ride theming. All around, it's an awesome ride, and it's the best coaster at Disney World. Number 93 is Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. One of the more unique coasters in America, Fahrenheit combines a Gerstlauer Eurofighter and an Intamin Blitz. And what you have is a great multi-looping coaster with a beyond vertical drop and great whip. Number 92 is Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. It's been 4 years since I've ridden this, and it feels like a lifetime ago. I need to find my way back. Maybe I'll do it next year, because this CCI wooden coaster is worth the trip. Even though I think it's rough, you aren't going to find many rides with a better layout coming down the side of a mountain. Number 91 is Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove. I wish I could have ridden this more than once. I just got one night ride in 2021, and the force this thing pulls is just crazy. You're all over the place with the launches and the laterals and the intense ejector. It's such a weird compact coaster. Number 90 is Comet at Hershey Park. I will for sure get back to the park for Wildcat's Revenge, and I want to get some more rides on the Comet. On my first trip, it was amazing. On my second, it wasn't. But everything in the park was running slow that day, so maybe it can redeem itself and move back up. Number 89 is Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. Even though I went to SeaWorld this year, I didn't ride Manta. We really only had time to ride Icebreaker and Mako, but I did ride this the year before and it was awesome. I gave it a nice bump into my top 100, and it deserves to stay there. Number 88 is Cornball Express at Indiana Beach. I got to see how awesome this could be in 2021. I'll probably get back there once they open American Dryer Looping. Those back row rides last year were so great, and it makes Cornball Express one of America's most underrated wooden coasters. Number 87 is Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I've been to Magic Mountain a few times since Tatsu turned orange, but I haven't ridden it in a few years. The pretzel loop scares away the people that I go to the park with, but next time I go, I gotta make it a point to ride it because this is an elite B&M. Number 86 is SheiKra at Busch Gardens Tampa. I wasn't all that impressed with the original B&M dive this year. It still had some great airtime on the first drop, and a nice second drop before the splashdown, but I still had to move it down 23 spots from last year. Compared to some other dive coasters, it's kinda basic. Number 85 is Skyrocket at Kennywood. This thing blew me away last year. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, but I only got the one ride because of a thunderstorm closing down the park. It's really a first half ride. It would be a lot higher if it had a strong second half, but it's still top 100 worthy. Number 84 is West Coast Racers at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I may have skipped Tatsu, but I made it a point to ride West Coast Racers on every one of my trips. I didn't love it as much as I have in the past, but it's still an impressive ride. Long, forceful, fun. You always get to race the other train. Really solid all-around ride. Number 83 and 82 is Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast at Six Flags Over Texas and St. Louis. I was so looking forward to riding this one more time before its renovation, but of course, it broke down while I was in the station, so no luck. Still, I've ridden this a bunch of times and it was amazing. At Over Texas, we'll get to ride this going forward again, something I've never experienced, and at least for now, we still have the backward version at St. Louis. I think it's good to mix them up. After I ride it forward, I can finally split these up, since they'll offer a different ride experience. Number 81 is Dragon Challenge Chinese Fireball at Islands of Adventure. It's now been almost 11 years since I rode this, but I can't take it out of my top 100. It was so much fun, even when it wasn't racing. The blue side was just alright, but I really missed the red side. Number 80 is Volcano the Blast Coaster at King's Dominion. Well, it's been 11 years since I rode Dragon Challenge, and it's been 14 years since I rode Volcano. I just missed this in 2018. It gave its last ride a couple months before I got there, but I will always have the awesome memories of riding this in 2008 and being the premier coaster at King's Dominion. Number 79 is Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer. Even though it kinda ran rough for me in 2018, I had to respect this layout and all the airtime. If I go to Hershey Park next year, I'll make it a point to get back to Waldameer for some re-rides. Number 78 and 77 is X-Flight at Six Flags Worlds of Adventure and Firehawk at Kings Island. Another great relocated coaster from the old Geauga Lake, and one of the best coasters Vekoma ever made, at least for America. It's too bad that this was the one that apparently couldn't go on any longer. It was my favorite of the three Flying Dutchmen. Number 76 is Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I'm old enough to remember when this was in my top 10, because that was only 4 years ago. I got a week ride in 2019, but it was cold, so I thought it deserved another ride. In 2022, I gave it 2 more rides and it was better. A nice smooth ride full of airtime, but it was too weak to rank any higher. I dropped this down 23 spots this year. Number 75 is King Naka at Six Flags Great Adventure. This Intamin Strata hits 128 miles per hour, and it's a feeling that's hard to prep for. It just kinda happens to you, and it's super intense. It could be better if it had lap bars, or if it wasn't so rattly, but you can't pass up a ride on King Naka. Number 74 is Afterburn at Carowinds. I've had to skip this the last 2 times I've gone to Carowinds, and that's too bad. This is a really great invert. In 2019, I got a front row and a back row ride, and that stuck with me. This is one of the more intense inverts, and it deserves the love it gets. Number 73 is Viper at Six Flags Great America. I sadly had to punish Viper on last year's list, dropping it about 20 spots, and since I didn't ride it this year, it can stay where it is. Still a very solid wooden coaster, still very underrated, but it just ran a little weak and a little rough for me last time. Number 72 is Wicked at Lagoon. I compare this a lot to Skyrocket. It's got an insanely great first half, and then it kinda dies in the second half. This gets the higher spot because that launch up and over the top hat is elite. Skyrocket's 0G roll is also top tier, but I still like Wicked more overall. Number 71 is Valraven at Cedar Point. Here's another coaster that I punished last year, dropping it from the 30s to the 70s, and I didn't get to Cedar Point this year, so here it stays. I have this ahead of Shikra but behind Griffin, so you get to wait for that one to come later on. Maybe even later than you think. Number 70 is Superman Krypton Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. I rode this one time this year, and it was great as always. The only thing that can vary from ride to ride is the roughness, but this year I thought it was running well. Number 69 is the Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure. It's a long ride, it's intense, it's well themed. It's a great combination of everything you could want in a Universal coaster. Number 68 is Stormrunner at Hershey Park. I would love to get back on this. I missed out on it in 2020 because it was down all year, but I loved it on my first trip in 2018. This could move way up, or maybe even drop way down. Like with Great Bear, and Fahrenheit, and Comet, when I go back to ride Wildcat's Revenge, I should get back on this awesome Intamin launch coaster also. Number 67 is Gemini at Cedar Point. It may be old, it may be janky, but Cedar Point has this running great, and it's full of that old school Aero airtime. Great timeless ride. Number 66 is Ride of Steel at Six Flags Darien Lake. I knew I had to get as many rides on this as possible when I went there in 2018. I probably wasn't coming back to Darien Lake anytime soon, and sure enough, I haven't. Maybe next year. This ranks so much higher than its clone at Six Flags America, mainly due to its better setting and its better lap bars. Number 65 is Mindblower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. Here's a coaster that should easily be in my top 50, but the roughness is too much to excuse. Amazing layout, great airtime, the signature inversion, but it'll beat you stupid, so it's down at 65. Number 64 is Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Here's the first one that dropped out of my top 50, and that's because it was running so rough this year. Still intense, still full of ejector, but I don't know why this year it rattled around so much. Number 63 is Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City. This is a weird coaster, but it has a powerful launch, good airtime hills. It's kind of like a hypercoaster, but with a launch. A real hidden gem at Silver Dollar City. Number 62 is Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. I may have ridden this in its current form for the last time. I did get to ride it with this new color scheme this year, and it was good as it's ever been. Who knows when it will reopen or how it'll change. Once it does and I get a re-ride, I'll have to see if it's still top 100 worthy. Number 61 is Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Speaking of the devil, this one is for sure getting a major overhaul. Whether it be a straight LSM retrofit or an LSM swing launch with a forward and backward section. I don't know, but this ride will change a lot when it reopens, and it will for sure change its ranking, for better or worse. Number 60 is Coaster at Playland. I got 3 amazing rides in 2019, and I have no idea when I'll be back. Vancouver isn't exactly an easy place to get to, but this park is adding a new Zamperla launch coaster in 2024, so maybe then. This is such a violent airtime machine, something that should be on anyone's bucket list. Number 59 is American Thunder at Six Flags St. Louis. I said I was going to get back to St. Louis this year, and even though I passed by the park, I couldn't go. I wanted to pop in, at least just to ride American Thunder. I loved this the first time I rode it back in 2018, but I haven't been back since. It has such a good layout, lots of good airtime, and when I finally get back there, it could go way up or drop way down. Number 58 is Medusa at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. My first floorless coaster was a great one, and it still holds up to this day. It's fallen out of my top 50 over the last 2 years by no fault of its own. It's just been outclassed by newer stuff. Number 57 is Kraken at SeaWorld Orlando. Another great floorless. I had to skip it this year, but I had a very solid ride last year. It's very similar to Medusa, just with a really cool second half and a setting by the lake. Number 56 is Banshee at Kings Island. I've been loving this invert less and less over the last 2 years. It's still impressive, fast, intense, but it was kind of lacking the normal punch that I was used to. That could have been because I rode it first thing in the morning, but regardless, I dropped it 13 spots and outside my top 50, where it's been for the last 6 years. Number 55 is Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. After my awesome ride this past summer, Alpengeist makes its top 100 debut, coming pretty close to my top 50. Having recently ridden both Banshee and Alpengeist, I had to give the edge to Alpengeist. I wasn't expecting that to be the case, but that's how it shook out. It was just so intense this year. The second half was running a lot faster after they turned down the mid-course brakes, and it was running very smooth. Really, a top-tier invert. Number 54 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. I gave this my praises on my video about coasters that shot up on my list. I made a vlog about how it made me speechless, and the bottom line here is, I had fun with it. It's not an uber elite coaster in my opinion, but its speed and whip are second to none in America, and I gave it a 22 spot bump this year. Number 53 is New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. I said this was the number 1 coaster that shot down my list, and here you finally have it. An RMC hybrid that's not in my top 50. I've been getting some weak rides on it over the last few years, and 2022 was kind of the final straw. It just doesn't pack in the same punch as other RMCs, but in the end, it's still an RMC hybrid with a great drop, a long ride, and lots of good airtime, which is why it still ranks pretty high. Number 52 is Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. This was a borderline top 50 coaster last year, and now it got bumped out by some new rides. I was impressed with this massive CCI wooden coaster last year. It just needs some track work to run a little smoother, and it would be back in my top 50, no question. Number 51 is Candemonium at Hershey Park. My top ranked coaster at Hershey Park also barely fell outside my top 50, but I think it can find its way back in. It's a B&M Hyper, and I rode this on a bad day when it was brand new. I bet this will shoot up my list if I ride this on a hot day, and when I get back to the park this year, I'll give it another shake. That's all for part 1 of my top 100. If you have any thoughts on these coasters, be sure to leave a comment down below, and stay tuned next week for part 2, where I look at the best of the best. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.